Hey guys, welcome back to another sleepy drift through history's greatest, wait, who figured that out moments. So if you've got your blanket, your tea, or the existential dread of another Monday morning, just settle in. Tonight, we're floating back, way back, to the age before kings, queens, and the usual aristocratic gremlins we complain about. Because before humans could even think about inventing crowns, they had to invent literally everything else. And yes, tonight's theme is Top 10 Ancient Inventions That Changed the World, which, to be honest, is kind of a bold list, considering ancient humans were basically doing a chaotic trial-and-error speed run of survival. But somehow, between being chased by saber-toothed cats and arguing about which berries were safe to eat, they actually came up with some pretty solid ideas. So dim the lights, relax your breathing. Let's begin with the invention that probably happened because someone somewhere didn't follow basic safety instructions. Fire, humanity's original technology. So, fire. The first invention that changed the world was basically a cosmic prank. Lightning strikes a tree explodes into flames. Caveman thinks, ah yes, warm, bright thing. I want. Of course he wants it. It's warm, it's dramatic, and for early humans who lived in caves colder than your ex's heart, it was pretty tempting. Archaeologists think controlled use of fire goes back at least 1 million years, which in human development time is basically the equivalent of your toddler suddenly inventing microwave popcorn. And yes, we call it controlled use, but let's be honest here. It was probably about as controlled as a toddler holding a flamethrower. Someone in the clan probably shouted something like, "Ugh, don't touch that," followed by "ugh, touching that immediately." But just imagine the first human who figured out fire makes food less chewy. Fire makes predators leave you alone. Fire makes night less terrifying. Fire makes cold caves livable. This was basically the prehistoric version of downloading electricity, gas stoves, heating systems, and mood lighting, except all at once. And since humans really can't leave well enough alone, once fire became a household item, they started experimenting. Because, of course they did. Cooking, the first step toward being less ape, more you. One of the quiet, cozy facts of human history is that cooking changed our bodies. When you cook food, your stomach doesn't have to work as hard, which eventually gave humans smaller jaws, smaller teeth, bigger brains, more free time. More time for what? Oh, you know, inventing tools, gossiping, figuring out what society is, probably reinventing pointless drama. Fire basically gave early humans a little brain upgrade, like turning your PC from potato mode to can actually run something. Thanks to cooking, humans weren't spending 9 hours a day chewing raw roots like our chimp cousins. They could finally sit down, relax, and wonder things like, what if I stick this rock on a stick and hit stuff with it? Which brings us to stone tools, the original DIY project. Stone tools weren't exactly the iPhone 16, but honestly, they were just as life-changing. We're talking about sharp flakes, hand axes, scrapers, basic things that made survival a bit less ridiculous. Early tools date back more than 2.5 million years, depending on which archaeologist you ask and how generous they're feeling that day. These tools weren't pretty. No symmetry, no polish. Just rocks bashing other rocks until something useful appeared. Aesthetics? Not a priority. Functionality? Still kind of questionable. But for early humans, this was revolutionary. Having a sharp edge meant you could cut meat instead of gnawing it. You could scrape hides instead of not doing that. You could dig up roots without ruining your fingers. You could defend yourself. And you could look intimidating during social disputes. Imagine trying to build a life without tools. Now imagine building a life with tools that were basically sharp potatoes. That's the human story for millions of years. Over time, stone technology got more advanced. Flint knapping, pressure flaking, all that complicated stuff that modern humans pretend to understand after watching a 5-minute documentary. Eventually, humans got so good at shaping rocks that archaeologists can tell different cultures apart just by the style of their stone tools, which is the ancient equivalent of telling people apart based on their sneaker brands. Language, the first social network. Next up, language. And no, it didn't start with something profound like, "We are one people." It probably started with something like, "Hey, give me that." Because fun fact, humans are very social and, more importantly, very bossy. We don't know exactly when language formed, but many scientists argue that some proto-language existed at least 100,000 to 200,000 years ago, possibly earlier. And human language didn't appear overnight. No one woke up and said, "Good morning, fellow Homo sapiens. Let us discuss economic policy." It was more like pointing, grunting, naming things, making gossip, inventing metaphors, complaining, poetry. Pretty much in that exact order. Language allowed coordination, teaching, planning, storytelling, social bonding, collective memory, and, unfortunately, complaining about neighbors. Because humans have always complained. Without language, no society, no traditions, no shared history. Without language, every generation would be starting from scratch. Imagine trying to learn fire without someone telling you, "No, don't put your face in it." Language also gave birth to myths and religion. Humans trying to explain thunder, seasons, and why Jeff from the tribe is so weird. Stories became teaching tools, and we know humans had stories because the desire to narrate nonsense is basically built into our DNA. Language, in short, is the glue of humanity, and also the reason group projects exist, which maybe isn't something to celebrate. Clothing, the first fashion disaster. So now we move to clothing. The oldest evidence of clothing goes back at least 100,000 to 170,000 years, though if you look at the archaeological record, it was basically animal skins wrapped around human bodies in whatever way didn't fall off. There was no prehistoric vogue, just survival. But clothing changed everything. Allowed humans to migrate into colder climates, reduced heat loss, protected against bugs, which is more heroic than it sounds, and let people carry tools more easily. And yes, eventually, clothing became a symbol of status, fashion, and culturally specific meaning. But early on, it was literally a dead animal blanket. Let's be honest. Nobody back then was saying, "Ooh, love your winter collection." They were saying, "I am not freezing to death tonight," and leaving it at that. Still, clothing enabled humans to spread across the world, even into places that no one asked for, like Ice Age Europe. And trust me, if you think winter is annoying now, imagine winter without heated rooms, socks, or the ability to complain about it on the internet. Shelter, because caves were too crowded. Even before proper houses, humans figured out that being outside all night was not ideal. The weather changed, predators roamed, random insects declared your hair their new home. So humans built shelters. Some were simple, sticks, branches, animal hides. Others were surprisingly advanced, mammoth bone houses, circular huts, and eventually stone structures. These shelters protected from cold, protected from predators, provided a stable home base, encouraged group living, allowed storage of food and tools, and supported long-term child-rearing. Basically, early humans were realizing, oh wow, life is actually tolerable when you're not being rained on 24/7. And once shelter developed, humans settled longer in one place, which meant cooperation, which meant conflict, which meant all the drama that historians love so much. Yes, shelter invented neighbors. Make of that what you will. Art. The first, do it for the aesthetic moment.